we don't know the refrigerant type you're dealing with, but being that you've got 800 pounds and you're at over 50 psi, I'm going to assume it's probably 134 maybe. Either way, the key here is your saturation temperature. We need the saturation temperature to be above freezing, period. So whatever refrigerant you're using, it doesn't matter. And with 800 pounds in the system, again, that if you're asking this question, you're probably working on a smaller system to begin with, and that's okay. My point there being, on a larger centrifugal, 800 pounds is just a portion of the charge. It's not that much compared to the total charge when we get into thousands and thousands of pounds of refrigerant that these things are going to hold. With your standing pressure, if that is above your freezing saturation, then you're fine, because the point there is if your saturation is below freezing, then when liquid refrigerant specifically makes contact with the tubes with water in them, then that liquid refrigerant can draw enough heat out of the tubes to freeze the water if we're below freezing temperatures. Now, if our saturation, despite the refrigerant, if our saturation is above a freezing temperature, then once that liquid refrigerant makes contact with the tube, we're not going to drop it down below freezing to begin with. So we're not going to freeze that water, period. And that is the main concern. That is the main concept that we're having to think about and work around, is what is the freezing saturation pressure, and let's get above that. And this is where you can charge vapor. So I've talked about this a lot recently, where if you pre-charge vapor into the chiller and get that pressure up, then charging liquid from there is far less of a risk versus if you tried to just send straight liquid in right out the gate after your evacuation, and then you end up causing the liquid refrigerant to make contact with the water. So if you're flowing water, like, there's still ways of mitigating that risk and that problem. Flowing water would be one of them. And either way you go with it is still recommended to flow water, whether you pre-charge vapor or not. But that is the key there, is the saturation temperature. If you're above that, the volume of refrigerant does not matter. Okay? You can get into systems where 800 pounds, that's just a portion of it. Now, in our context, that's probably the majority of your charge, I would assume, if not your entire charge. And that's the key takeaway here. Saturation, saturation, saturation. I'm just driving that home.